let's explore the topic of spontaneity. Now, spontaneity is really the flow of freedom. So this spontaneity, to live spontaneously, it requires your life to have some space. So your life can't be so jam-packed. So there needs to be some space. And as we progress on the journey, you start noticing that actually things kind of fall away, kind of fall out of your life, I guess you could say. And it's like there's this space that's opening up. So this space then allows more spontaneity. Right? It's like it allows more room. If it's so jam-packed, then there's just no room for this spontaneity. You can look at it like a calendar. If you maybe your work calendar, or if you own a business or something that's just, people that live by a calendar. If your calendar is all kind of blocked out, you have all your appointments, all of your things. And we see this in like the world of like personal development, to time block your calendar and make sure that you got something. Basically your calendar looks like all these different colors. And it's almost like this, this goal, like, make sure you have no white space on the calendar. There must be something going on at all times. This would be the opposite of that spaciousness that I was talking about, right? It's just jam-packed. So if your calendar looks like that, you see that life, when you're progressing on this path, life just kind of goes, well, let's just free up some time there. Let's just, create some space in your life. But this space, which at the time it feels like, oh my God, my life is falling apart, it's for your good. It's for your good. Because it's this spaciousness that allows that spontaneity. And what's that spontaneity? Well, it's the flow of freedom, right? So it's this flow of freedom because it's not so free when everything is so jam-packed, so restricted, right? Another way you can look at it is just your schedule becomes more flexible, right? But it can only be flexible when there's the space. You can only have the flexibility to move this meeting over here. Someone says, hey, well, can we do lunch actually a little later today? But you can only move it around because of that because of that space. So you can have that flexibility. Just drag and drop, move it here, sure. Change that. We're not going to meet this Friday. Okay, next Friday. And you're kind of moving things around like this. That's a sort of flexibility to your schedule. So that's not quite spontaneity, but it's how do we say this? It's on the way there, I guess you can say. That the calendar, your life starts opening up and it starts becoming a little bit more flexible. Meaning it's less rigid. That your day is not so rigid. You're not pre-planning everything. You loosen up that plan. If you're used to planning 10 things to do during the day, maybe you just plan 5. Right? You start going in this direction of basically life without a plan. But I don't want to scare you. That's kind of in the direction that it goes, is life without a plan. Life without a plan is just a spontaneous life. And a spontaneous life is a free life. It's the natural flow of life. The natural flow of life is spontaneous. There's nothing planned. Right? So it's moving in that direction. And as we progress on the journey, you just start noticing these things, that there's just more space, there's more flexibility, and there's less of this rigid schedule. Right? So this space, this flexibility, this, not having such a big plan, then is creating this room for spontaneity to arise. And that's how it happens. Like, you can't plan to be spontaneous. You can't be like, oh, you know what? Wednesday afternoon, I'm going to be so spontaneous. Let me just put this in my calendar. Let's color it light blue. Spontaneous, right? Spontaneity right there. I'll give myself an hour right there, 1 to 2 p.m. Spontaneity. It's not like that. You don't plan it like that. It's the arising of the moment. It's that spontaneity it's arising in the moment. That's what people kind of refer to when they say things like, oh, why'd you do that? And they're like, I don't know. It was like spur of the moment. But I'm glad I did that, right? It's always those things. It's always unexpected. It's funny because we always kind of, we talk about it like that, but it's almost like we don't catch on. We always say things like, wow, like that was so good and so, surprisingly unexpected, right? It's like, and then we kind of say things, the opposite of that and go, oh man, this is not what I expected. Now you get so, down and you start beating yourself up. So you look at that, it's like when we have these expectations, the experience is disappointment. Oh man, that's not what I expected. And when we don't have the expectations, it's just kind of like, wow, that was just beyond any expectations. I didn't even expect it. And it's like an upside. So it's like when we have the expectations, we experience the downside. When we don't have the expectations, we experience an upside. It's ironic. And we say these kind of cliche phrases like I'm kind of sharing. And it's like we don't catch on. Like, well, what does life look like without expectations? Wouldn't that always look like wow, it's a surprise. Oh, wow. Pleasant surprise. Right? What if that is just how life actually is? That life is the gift. It's a surprise, right? It's this moment. It's a surprise. Without any expectations put on this moment, it's just like, wow. It's pure wonder. Right? And then there's this spontaneity that arises because there was nothing that was trying to control it. There's nothing that was saying it should be this, it should be that. Most people have all these rules. But what is life like without those rules? What is it like without all of those conditions that you put on it? What's life like when you're not trying to control it? Because as long as you try and control the spontaneous flow of life, it's impossible to experience that spontaneity. I don't know what word would be good for it, but something along the lines of it's artificial, it's mechanical. It's just, it's dry. Like the juice in life is that aliveness, and that aliveness is what people say. It's the spur of the moment. It's like the aliveness of the moment. Why did you do that? I don't know. There's like an impulse. There's this aliveness that just goes, do that. Like you just move. You just move in that direction. And you aren't the one that's controlling that. So it's just like this flowy type of energy. And you're not sitting there like planning something out. You're not sitting there with your coffee planning out your day. Now, you might have that morning coffee and then sun's kind of beaming through the window, the warmth on your face. And then spontaneously you say, let me hurry up with this coffee and I'm going to go for a walk. right? Here you are having the morning coffee, and someone else is having the morning coffee, but someone else is having the morning coffee and planning a to-do list for the day. They're planning out their whole day. And the one without that list, without the plan, there's so much openness that then it's like, oh, I'm just going to go for that walk. And then more spontaneity arises on the walk. The walk was it was a walk without a destination. It was a walk without a map. And then it's like every turn is just spontaneous like that. It's not like, oh, this is my walking route. I only walk around my block. No, it's like this. It's an exploration. Right? So it's a totally different way of living. But you start noticing this kind of this spontaneity trickle in to your life. And you start noticing that, wow, it's just like you feel much more alive. And it's you're following that spontaneity. Like I said, it's like you're following the freedom. That spontaneity is the flow of freedom. And it's now you're just following it. You're just going with that flow. Your life is so spontaneous. Right? To others, they look and they go, what the? They can't figure it out. You're so unpredictable. What the? You look like you're, crazy. You're not crazy. You're just natural. Because natural is not normal, right? Normal is that it's the norm. It's conditioned. It's very planned. Normal. You have an idea what normal is. You could draw out, well, this is what's normal. Right? But natural is something totally different. Right? So you're feeling so natural to live spontaneously. It feels so natural to just follow that flow. And it's so exciting. It's so alive. It's so inspiring. There's this curiosity. There's this courage. There's just the love. The love of life. That it's not exactly like this. It's not that there's every moment. There's only the moment, but it's just pure exploration. It's like you don't know. You don't know where it's going to, you're just drinking coffee one moment. 1 second you're drinking coffee, boom, sunlight hits you on the forehead. You're like, wow, that feels so nice. Oh, wow, it's so nice outside. I'm going to get outside. Hurry up with this coffee. I'm going to go for a walk. You're going for a walk. There's no destination. There's no time restriction. There's no, route. There's no map. You're out there walking. You see a little bunny. Start following that little bunny. You're now on some trail. You've never been on this trail before. You start seeing new plants, new, wildlife, all that. And it's like, wow, it's so, I would never have, experienced this if it wasn't for following that little bunny, right? So it's little, it sounds goofy when you hear it if you're used to the mechanical way of living. But it's very childlike. It's very childlike. It's like how people say like children are so curious, right? So it's just this curiosity. It's this kind of innocence. It's a playfulness. It's light. You're just drinking your coffee, sun hits you, and you're like, ooh, I like how that feels. I want to get more of that. Let me go outside, get more of that sun. You're walking outside, you're like, I feel like I'm charging up. It's like you're like some turtle or a lizard or something. It's just like sunbathing, you're charging up. You're walking, you're like, this feels good. Feeling like the breeze just flow through you. Feeling so light on your feet. Am I even touching the ground? I don't even know. It feels so good. Oh, there's a cute little bunny. You follow that bunny. Oh, wow, the forest. Forest is, it's so different. at this time of the year. I've never even been on this trail. I didn't even know that this was here. It's only 10 minutes from my house. I've lived here for 10 years, never even found this part of the forest. Right? So it's this, there's a wonderment to it. There's like, it's so magical. There's an innocence to it. There's just an innocence of just being so innocent, and this curiosity arises, and this kind of, it's like you're following the scent. Like I said, it's like that following the freedom, and you have a love for freedom. So you're just, it's like you're like smelling it's like a perfume. It's a fragrance, and you're just following it. And you just follow that rabbit. You follow it. But it's like that. Basically, your whole day looks like that. That's what I'm saying. That's where it's leading you, is just more and more aliveness. Because really living the truth it's being fully alive. It's being fully alive. That's what I said, is like these words. What did I say? To contrast it, it would be like, like you don't want to say it's, it's like being dead, because it's going to be it's going to offend a lot of people that watch it, but saying it a little differently, it feels artificial, right? It feels mechanical. Right? Or, using some other words here, it's stressful, it's serious. That's why I said it's like, it's heavy. Whereas like there's this lightness, it's a childlikeness. And that's what's so, it's familiar, right? Because we've experienced that before as a child. And then there's this softness, and you just feel supported by everything. Because the mind's kind of like, whoa, no, we got to do this and stay in your lane, stick to the schedule. You're only on task number 2 of your 10 task to-do list. Come on. And the mind, by following that, it's like a tyrant. It's just cracking the whip kind of thing. Get back. It's kind of like that. Whereas this spontaneity, it's just so free. It can't be controlled. You can't control freedom. If freedom could be controlled, it wouldn't be freedom. You can't control it. So that's why I said, is this spontaneity, how people say it's like, oh, it's just this spur of the moment. It arises like that. It's uncontrollable. But you have a love for freedom. So it's like you have a love, and there's an interest in that. There's an interest in just following that spontaneous flow. And experientially, you just start seeing that it's like it's opening doors for you. You're exploring new areas of life. It's opening you up even more to new experiences. It's even more magical. You start seeing that your life is now more creative. This spontaneous flow is pulling you in different ways that actually you're more creative, and it makes you like pull something out of you, want to share it, want to express it. And then you feel even more alive. You can't hold this in. It's pouring out. It needs to be shared. And then that activity of that creativity, you're feeling even more alive. So like this, it's just like you're hooked on that. It's an aliveness. It's not like, it's not like an adrenaline junkie kind of like chasing, the next high. It's not like that. It's an aliveness. It's like following your passion. It's following your heart, following your freedom. but it's opening you up more and more. There's more and more softness. There's more and more trust in life. With more and more trust, there's more and more support. And it's that trust, that support, that then is just, you're letting go of even more control. You're letting go of even more of your plan. It gets to the point where you're just like, fuck it, I don't need a plan. I don't need to control. Right? The experientially, you're just seeing, this is like the journey, is you're just seeing is like, it's way better without the plan. I can't plan for this. So why do I even waste 15 minutes while drinking coffee to make the plan? When I try and plan, the plan doesn't go as planned. Why make the plan? Right? Sure, there's some practical planning. Sure, but even that, you start seeing that just happens. You don't need to plan. You know, it's more of, you could say, to get your feet wet in living what I'm sharing here is, you know, whatever's meant to happen will happen. And you just don't, that's it. Don't worry about anything else. Because if it was meant to happen, then it would happen. And if it doesn't happen, then it wasn't meant to happen. And like that, you're just like, whoa, what a load. You know, you just take that load off. But when we have a plan, then we're saying we want to make that happen. That's where all the stress is. That's where the seriousness is. That's where the pressure is. But that's what I said, is like, without that plan, without trying to force it, you're not forcing. Anytime you force, you're going to experience a counterforce. But when you're not forcing, you're just following the flow. And that flow has its own power. It's that power that's bringing you places that you could never force. No matter how much force you put into something, this power is greater. There's a greater power. Your little force is no match for it. So that's what's being surrendered, is that force. You stop forcing things. You stop forcing life. You start experiencing the power of life. You start experiencing that aliveness. That aliveness is the power. That's why you feel so alive. That's why you feel so inspired. That's why you feel so vitalized. You just feel it. It's palpable. It's palpable. And that literally is the sign. You're just following that aliveness. There's just a natural direction. It's a natural guidance that you're just guided by that aliveness. You're just doing things that you feel more and more alive. Why would you go in the other direction?